To Afghanistan straight away, where evacuations from the capital Kabul are taking place under the threat of attack. A firefight has been reported between unidentified gunmen, Western security forces and Afghan guards at the north gate of Kabul airport. One Afghan guard has reportedly been killed and 3 others were injured. Kabul airport has been the focus, of course, of the humanitarian crisis there over the last week or so since the Taliban took over the Afghan capital, indeed the country. A week ago, Rob Mcbride joins us live from Kabul. So, Rob, what are we saying here? An Afghan guard? Is that a Taliban person then?
It remains unclear at this stage exactly what took place, but this was at the north gate of the airport. This is one of the gates where many people who have secured seats on evacuation flights, possibly they have special visas or they're civilians who are connected with previous military missions here in Afghanistan, they are told to go to. And what we understand is that there was some sort of confrontation, a firefight ensued involving US forces, German army soldiers, and also Afghans. Now, it's not clear at this stage whether this was Afghan Taliban or Afghan security. What we do know is that, as reported by the Germans, is that an armed Afghan man was killed and several others were injured. So we're not quite sure exactly who was involved from the Afghan side, but it does show you some of the volatility at the airport, that you have all of these heavily armed units with different areas of responsibility around the airport, both inside and outside, a volatile crowd of people pressing to get into the airport. So it is all, a very dangerous mix, and we have seen incidents like this happen in the past week, and this seems to be another incident. So we're still waiting to see exactly what the circumstances were. In the meantime, another development that's been taking place, we believe this actually started Sunday, but is certainly continuing today, Monday, and that's the deployment by the Taliban of a new force of its soldiers. This is the Badri 313. Now, this is, if you like, Taliban special forces. They are better trained. They actually look rather like special forces in terms of uniform and weapons they carry and helmets as the US and NATO allies. They are special forces in that regard. And they have now been deployed with the idea that they might be able to push the perimeter further out from the actual gates and walls of the airport, to extend it further, to take some of the pressure off. Now, the ordinary Taliban, they are still there. The Taliban fighters who've been wrestling to try to keep control and firing off volleys of shots, they are still there, and they are still firing the occasional shot, and some of the Taliban are wandering around with canes and whips, casually trying to clear people, whack them out of the way, if you like. But these special forces, it is hoped, maybe will restore a little more order there. One of our producers was down there earlier Monday to see them taking over their duties and responsibilities, but they do remain just as camera shy, it seems. Our producer tried to get his phone out and was told by some of the water sellers and fruit juice sellers who he was standing next, you better put that away, because if they see you, they're going to smash your phone. And in fact, the same people were telling our producers that yesterday, Sunday, a woman took her phone out and was spotted filming, and she was given a beating.
And we understand as well, Rob, get us up to date on this development. There's a contingent of Taliban heading out of the province of Kabul, perhaps the city of Kabul, to take on members of the Northern Alliance.
Yeah, this is Northern Alliance 2.0, if you like. This is the Panjshir Valley, which is the traditional home of resistance to the Taliban. It was 25 years ago in the late 90s with Ahmad Shah Massoud. He was regarded as a Tajik resistance hero who fought against the Taliban. His son was in Kabul, and as Kabul fell and the government fell, he moved with other remnants of the government, other ministers, and also units who still wanted to fight the Taliban. The natural place to go to was the Panjshir Valley. So they have they have holed up in the Panjshir Valley, and this is, if you like, the start of a possible resistance, but it remains to be seen just how serious it will be. We understand that Ahmad Massoud, the son, has been in negotiations with the Taliban, and there's been a lot of speculation that he was going to pledge allegiance, he was going to put down his arms and say we are not going to fight. The latest we have is that in a phone conversation Sunday with senior Taliban leaders, he has said he's not interested in working with the Taliban, and it does seem as though he wants to continue the resistance. Now, what does that mean? At this stage, we're not quite sure, but the Taliban have moved there to the Panjshir. There does seem to be some kind of standoff, and it remains to be seen how it develops. But this resistance force is not that strong, especially compared with the Northern Alliance of a couple of decades ago. You're talking about 2,000, 2,500 soldiers, perhaps, and also in the neighbouring province of Baghlan, where this force claimed to have taken 3 districts off the Taliban. That was a start of the fight back. Well, we now hear that the Taliban have regained those districts.
Rob, many thanks. Talk to you later, I'm sure. In the meantime, thank you. Rob Mcbride there, reporting live from Kabul. OK, let's hear now from Charles Stratford. He joined one evacuation mission on board a plane from the Qatari capital, Doha, to Kabul. It was going there to ferry people out of Afghanistan.
Heading east towards Kabul airport. This flight is part of an international effort to move thousands of people out of Afghanistan because they are afraid of the new rulers of their country that has suffered decades of war.
We're about an hour into this 2.5-hour journey from Qatar to Kabul, flying on this Qatar Air Force C-17 cargo plane. On board are journalists, Qatari soldiers and medics, and it's expected that the return journey on this aircraft will see it full of Afghans fleeing their country.
We land on the NATO-controlled side of the airport. The situation is calm, far removed from the chaos outside the perimeter fence controlled by the Taliban. Long lines of Afghans wait in single file to board the planes.
These are some of the tens of thousands of people trying to flee Kabul today. We arrived here, I suppose, about half an hour ago. There are 4 military aircraft simultaneously loading up with people that say they are too afraid to remain in this country.
I think this is devastating to leave behind the city that I called home, the city that gave me the chance to be who I am. I think there's a lot of raw emotions. These are real emotions. I leave behind a lot of memories, a lot of contradictions, a lot of pain, a lot of suffering, but yet Kabul gave us the strength somehow. And this, what you're seeing here, is brain drain. This is the cream of the crop being forced to leave.
You know that the Taliban regime is same as before, but maybe they act like that for some days, and they will become the same as before.
The Taliban, of course, have said that there will be no reprisals against people who have either worked with NATO forces or Western media organisations, or indeed their family members. You speak to people here, they don't believe that. According to some estimates, there are tens of thousands of people who over the last 20 years have worked with NATO, who have worked in some capacity with Western media. And it is these people that you see here today. Another aircraft has arrived in the last few minutes. We've seen helicopters landing also since our arrival. The situation is calm, but there is a lot of tension here, as what is being described as one of the largest airlifts in history continues.
US President Joe Biden says the evacuation of Americans and vulnerable Afghans has accelerated. He says discussions are taking place to possibly extend a deadline for evacuations beyond next week. The deadline's August 31st. More than 28,000 people have been airlifted out of Kabul airport since the Taliban took control. Mr. Biden insists the chaos at Kabul airport couldn't have been avoided.
The evacuation of thousands of people from Kabul is going to be hard and painful, no matter when it started, when we began. It would have been true if we had started a month ago or a month from now. There is no way to evacuate this many people without pain and loss of heartbreaking images you see on television. It's just a fact. My heart aches for those people you see.
And the US Vice President Kamala Harris is in Singapore to reaffirm Washington's alliances in the Indo-Pacific region. Harris met the Singaporean Prime Minister and President. They touched on a number of topics, including disputed islands in the South China Sea, the ongoing crisis in Myanmar, and, of course, what's going on in Afghanistan.
There's no question there will be, and should be, a robust analysis of what has happened. But right now, there is no question that our focus has to be on evacuating American citizens, Afghans who worked with us, and vulnerable Afghans, including women and children. That has to be our primary focus and where we are placing our attention on the issue of Afghanistan. And to that end, we have seen a successful drawdown of the embassy, and thankfully, without any American casualties.
Florence Looi is our correspondent tracking that story out of the bureau in Kuala Lumpur. Florence, so many big issues for Kamala Harris to get into there.
That's right. So she had a discussion with the Singapore Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong on Monday, and at a press conference, at a joint news conference, Kamala Harris said that her visit really is about U.S. commitment to the Indo-Pacific region, specifically a free and open Indo-Pacific region. And she said her visit here to Singapore and then to Vietnam later in the week is a reaffirmation of U.S. ties to this region. Now, this region is increasingly important to the U.S. We first had President Barack Obama in his pivot to Asia policy, which was essentially a rebalancing of foreign policy away from the Middle East towards Asia. And now we have US President Joe Biden bringing the focus back to Asia as well. Now, this is a region that's increasingly important because really of China's growing influence, not just economically, but also in security issues. And many countries in Southeast Asia are coming under pressure from China. Several Southeast Asian countries are also claimants in the South China Sea, and the South China Sea is where China is laying claims to large parts of. Now, the US has regularly conducted freedom of navigation operations, and to this end, Ms. Kamala Harris, she talked about the U.S. Commitment to having freedom of navigation in the South China Sea. Now, she's also going to, on Tuesday, lay out the future of U.S. ties in the region at a policy speech on Tuesday. Now, this visit is important because it really, I think they want to bring home the point that this is an important region, and Kamala Harris said so in the news conference, that this is already, Indo-Pacific is now an important region, and it's going to play an even more important role in the future.
Florence, thanks very much. Florence Looi there joining us live with that update.